is Style Shifter, the podcast where we explore the past, present, and future of the choices we make about what we wear. I'm Daria, and every week we dive into personal style, shopping habits, and the way fashion shapes our lives. What if I told you that the wealthiest people I've worked with, clients who could spend 20,000 euros on a single shopping trip, who had closet rooms the size of most apartments, had the exact same wardrobe problems as everyone else? For 15 years, I've been working as a luxury personal shopper alongside running Wonder Wardrobe. I'm talking about clients who owned things I would only ever seen in fashion magazines, who could afford literally anything fashion has to offer. And yet, every single one of them would tell me the same thing. I have nothing to wear. I've been hesitant to share these stories because I never wanted to emphasize the money and power dynamics in wardrobe curation. When people hear about unlimited budgets, they assume all style problems go away. And it's nearly impossible to convince them otherwise. But working with extreme wealth taught me something counterintuitive. Having unlimited resources can actually make wardrobe problems worse, not better. Today, I'm finally ready to share what I learned from years of curating wardrobes worth more than most people's houses, and why these experiences completely changed how I think about the relationship between money and style. Because what you are about to learn, surprisingly, applies to every single one of us, regardless of our budget. I was 22 when I got my first luxury personal shopping client. I was working at a high-end shopping mall in Moscow as a brand specialist, desperately trying to build my personal shopping business on the side, living in the tiniest apartment you can imagine in the outskirts of the city. Then one day, a personal assistant called me. She said her boss needs help organizing his wardrobe. So I show up at this house and the assistant interviews me a bit, asks where I studied. I told her I studied in Milan, had an internship with a luxury personal shopper, and I'm very good. She looks at me and says, okay, but first let me show you the work you need to do because maybe that's a bit too much for you. So we go to his main closet. Maybe 40 square meters of built-in wardrobes, beautifully designed. Everything looked perfectly organized already. And I'm thinking, what exactly needs organizing here? Then she says, look, we need someone to make an inventory of everything he owns because he owns so much he keeps forgetting what he has. He wants everything photographed and cataloged. I'm looking around this huge room thinking, okay, maybe I need a week for this. Then she says, oh no, that's only his main closet. And I'm like, okay, show me the rest. We go down to the basement. There is another room, maybe 100 square meters, just packed floor to ceiling with clothes and shoes. I don't think I'd ever even seen anything like that, not even in movies. It was filled with Brioni, Bottega Veneta, Gucci, like the most expensive things ever. I'm trying to keep my cool because I need this job, but inside I'm completely shocked. This guy had around 3,000 clothing items. 3,000. And obviously, when you have that many clothes, you have no idea what you own anymore and no idea how to wear all of it. So I look at all of this and I'm like, okay, I don't think a week will be enough. This is going to be like a month, maybe 2 months of work. I will need to hire a photographer, set up a little studio, get help from staff to iron everything. The assistant says, yeah, no problem, but you need to talk to my boss first. He wants to see you. So I went home that day manifesting that I will get this job, even though it meant I would have to quit my current job at the shopping mall. I had one dress from a luxury brand that I had bought at a consignment store in Milan, so that was my interview outfit. Next day, I meet the boss, and he wasn't really threatening, but he had his doubts. I was young and looked young, and he looks at me and says, "You understand that I can hire anyone in the world to do this job, right? I can get someone from Vogue to do this for me. So I don't know, are you sure you can do this job?" And I'm like, of course, you can hire anyone really. I understand that. But they will not have my drive, they will not have my taste, and they will not have the education that I had in Italy. I was so full of myself, but I think he liked my ambition. He says, "You know what? I really try to give young people a chance when I can. You are hired." Oh my God, that was just amazing. So the whole job took me exactly 2 months. I went there almost every day. We photographed and cataloged everything. It was like a huge book with tons of pictures. At some point, we figured out that some of his staff had taken some of his clothes home to their families because the guy had no idea what he had. And he didn't really care. He was like, yeah, fine, whatever. If I don't remember it, I don't care. At the end, he was very pleased, and then he said, "Okay, so let's go to Milan now and get some new clothes." And I'm thinking, oh my God, we just cataloged everything and now we're going to buy more and I will have to catalog again? Nonetheless, I said yes. So we go to Milan for 2 days of shopping. And my client really appreciated that I could show him a slightly different perspective: hidden restaurants with authentic Italian cuisine, places tourists never find, local heritage brands that no one knew about, and the fact that I wasn't very impressed by luxury because I had studied with it, touched it, knew how to work with it, that made a big difference. We bought tons of clothes again. And then I kept working for him for another half a year, and we went shopping again and again and again. At that point, I didn't really think about why someone with that many clothes still needs to shop. But that's just how it was with all my wealthy clients. Their attitude toward fashion wasn't that serious, even though the money they spent was insane and mind-blowing. Now, before I tell you about my other clients, you need to understand how this world actually works. Because luxury shopping, when money is no object, is completely different from anything most people experience. I would arrive in Milan a day or two before my client to see all the collections and make kind of like a map of shops where we would go. Then I will talk to managers and ask them to close the store completely for us. Some boutiques have special kind of like a VIP rooms where you are completely private with your own fitting rooms and assistants. Besides the clothes, they also bring drinks from water to champagne, maybe some snacks. You could spend hours there. It was completely normal. For smaller heritage Italian shops with custom tailoring, they would just close the entire store because they knew my client would spend, I don't know, at least 20,000 euros that day. And I was in charge. I decided yes or no, talked to salespeople, gave instructions, and my clients would just try everything on, no rush, no sweating, nothing. When they paid for everything, We would just leave the bags there because luxury stores deliver everything to your hotel. And if anything needed tailoring, they have their own tailors in the store who come right in and pin everything on you. So no delays. It usually takes just maybe 1-2 days maximum. And then they again deliver it to your hotel. So this is the luxury shopping experience. If you are enjoying these behind the scenes stories and reflection on style, identity, and shopping, would you take a moment to rate the podcast on Spotify or leave a review on Apple Podcasts? Your review helps other women find our community and join this important conversation about conscious style choices and thoughtful wardrobes. Plus, hearing your thoughts helps me create episodes that really matter to you. It only takes a minute, but it makes a huge difference. And with the context of luxury shopping in mind, let me tell you another story. There was this other client who really opened my eyes to how collecting luxury becomes almost compulsive. She invited me to organize her wardrobe first before we went shopping. So I came to her house and she had a normal sized closet room compared to my first client, maybe like 20 square meters, but completely full of everything. I worked the whole day revising, organizing. At the end, she invites me for tea and says, I have a confession to make. That's not all the clothes I have in this house. And I'm like, okay, show me, because I can come tomorrow. And she says, just don't judge me, okay? It's important to me what you think about what I have in the other storage. So we go to the basement. Oh my God, huge room with rails of clothes. It was like a store with tons of stuff. So what I saw upstairs was just 20% of what she actually had. And she says, you don't understand. This is the archive. This is the best of the best. I have couture pieces from Chanel, Dior. And she starts showing me the pieces from the 80s, the 90s, and it was like a fashion museum. My heart dropped. I forgot how tired I was. Some of these pieces cost like a house, you know? Real, unique, and super rare things that I would only seen in pictures. Then she says, do you want to see my fridge? And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, I have a separate room that is actually a fridge for my fur coats. I'd never seen anything like that in my life, so please show me the fridge room full of fur coats. It was like a vault in a bank with a huge door secured by a code. You could walk into it and see rails with fur coats from luxury brands, all kinds of furs. I was out of words, of course. She says, I don't even wear fur because it's kind of inappropriate now, but I don't know what to do with it all, so it just stays here. The next day I came back and cataloged the quote-unquote archives. It was another week of work. Then we flew to her house in Switzerland, very close to Italy, near Lake Lugano. My new task was to organize her closet there. She looks at everything and says, I don't really like any of this. I think we should go shopping to Milan and just buy everything new. And I'm like, yes, that's a great idea. Because that was my job. I couldn't say, no, you don't need more clothes. At that point, I didn't have the philosophy I have now. For me, it was just like, yeah, we go shopping because Shopping is my job. So we sat in her Porsche and drove to Milan, about an hour drive. We shopped the whole day. I had private rooms reserved for her so we could shop in peace. And at some point, I took her to a small Italian brand that wasn't one of those super famous luxury things on the main streets, but they still had beautiful quality and craftsmanship. When we left, she says, Daria, please, let's not go to any fast fashion, okay? And I'm like, a dress was 1,000 euros, but sure, no fast fashion. My apologies. Another client gave me a perfect example of just how detached from reality extremely wealthy people can become. So I'm driving to her house and I get completely lost because all these mansions have huge fences and you can barely see the house numbers. I call her and say, look, I can't find your house. Is there a landmark I should look for that will help me find it? She says, well, we have a black helicopter right next to the house. And I'm like, black helicopter? Okay, got it. I'm thinking, surely I can find a black helicopter, right? I look around and literally almost every house had a black helicopter in their yard. Almost every house. I had to call again and like, okay, black helicopter, what else? They had to send their personal bodyguard to find me. So I come to the house, organize everything, work through the whole day. She looks at the results and says, okay, oh, that's very nice. Oh, that's very clever. Super. Oh, no, I love it. Oh, so nice. And then she says, do you think you can give me a discount for your services? And I'm thinking, you have a helicopter in your backyard and you are asking me for a discount? What discount are you talking about? That was insane. I said, no, I don't do any discounts. Then we go shopping. And in every store, she asked for a discount. She would buy a jacket for 5,000 euros and ask for a discount. When you spend that much money on one item, there are no discounts. At that price point, no one mentions discounts. But you know what? I've been thinking about this behavior for years, and I wonder if it was actually guilt. Maybe deep down, she knew she was buying things she didn't need, like spending money on stuff that wouldn't really improve her life. Maybe asking for discounts was a way to justify all the shopping. Like, well, if I get a discount, then it's okay to buy this thing I don't actually need. It's this weird psychological thing where people try to make overconsumption feel more reasonable by getting a deal. And it actually ties into something fascinating. There is a research called enclothed cognition that shows that when people feel powerless, they are more inclined to buy luxury items. Spending beyond your means becomes this costly coping strategy for dealing with psychological threats. So maybe all that discount asking wasn't about money at all. Maybe it was about trying to feel less powerless, less out of control of her own spending habits. But regardless of these behaviors, the helicopter lady asking for discounts, the woman with the fur coat vault, the man who forgot what he owned, every single wealthy client I worked with had the same core issue underneath it all. They had a lot, but they had nothing to wear. It's not some cliche thing, it's an actual, real thing. No matter how much money you have, this feeling is still very relevant. The truth is, even if you have all the money in the world, it doesn't mean you have taste. That you can control yourself against overconsumption and fashion advertising. And more importantly, it doesn't mean you can buy style. All of them just didn't have that in them. Style is not something tangible, it's something you develop or maybe you are born with. You can definitely develop this skill for aesthetics and taste and personal style, but it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you can buy the best fashion there is, you can still choose the worst things and pair them in the worst possible way. And I've heard this phrase so many times when I tell people that I teach women how to style and curate their wardrobes in a sustainable way. And they say, if only I had more money, all my style problems would be solved. And I'm not talking about people struggling with basic needs here. I'm talking about people who shop constantly and yet still feel unsatisfied. You can learn how to dress well by practicing, by learning your colors, your best fits, your personal style, and how to express yourself. But just by having a lot of money? No. Of course, you are probably thinking that you can buy style by hiring a professional stylist. Of course, that definitely helps. But there are also so many stylists out there who also don't have very good taste. They think they do, but it's the same as with any creative industry. There are painters that are really good and everybody wants their paintings. And there are thousands of painters that paint and no one ever wants to buy their artworks. If you have the means to hire someone that is really, really good, then yes, you can totally buy style. I actually had one client that bought style because he would have me create entire capsule wardrobes from scratch for his vacation houses because he wanted everything new waiting for him when he arrived. I would go to Milan by myself, buy everything, go with the suitcases to his house, organize everything, and then go home. The client would come and just have stuff to wear. But good personal shoppers with tons of experience and resources are quite expensive. If you don't have that opportunity, you can still learn these skills by yourself and for yourself. You can avoid the chaotic wardrobe, learn how to dress with taste and grace, and stop wasting money on clothes you don't wear. Because all that shopping without intention is still waste. Not only money, but also resources and a waste of your mental and emotional capacity. And just to show you how universal this problem is, literally just a month ago, I had a client who came to me with the exact same issue, but from the completely opposite end of the spending spectrum. She had over 600 items in her wardrobe, but instead of luxury pieces, it was all fast fashion. She was spending maybe $20 or $30 per item instead of thousands. But she had the exact same problem. Tons of clothes, nothing to wear. She felt overwhelmed and frustrated with her wardrobe. The price point was completely different, but the underlying issue was identical. Shopping without intention, buying impulsively, not understanding what actually works for her body and lifestyle. Whether you are spending €5 or €5,000 per item, the fundamental skills are the same. And to end my stories on the wardrobes of the super rich, I want to leave you with this. We live in a culture that constantly tells us that more is better, that expensive means good, that luxury equals style. But the helicopter lady asking for discounts, the woman with the vault of unworn fur coats, The man with 3,000 items who still felt like he had nothing to wear? They are all proof that having unlimited resources doesn't solve the core style challenges we all face. Learning how to choose well does. And that's something every single one of us can master, regardless of our budget. If this episode resonated with you, I would love to hear about your own relationship with money and style. Have you ever thought, if only I had more money, I would solve all of my wardrobe struggles? Are you working on learning to choose well regardless of your budget? What's helping you along the way? I'm here to help you through your own style shift. So make sure to send your questions to wonder-wardrobe.com/ask. It will get answered in my next episode. Inside the Wonder Wardrobe app, you will find a space for real conversations about personal style, wardrobe curation, and learning to dress well regardless of how much you are spending. It's free to explore, and I would love to continue this conversation there. As always, I'm Daria, your guide into conscious style shifting. See you on our next styling adventure.